What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lazy Booking Live on A2DRadio.com. Coming at you live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Myself, Mr. Matty Sinsuti. What's up, brother?
What is up, dude? And I'll get that right one day.
Tuesday night, our temporary home for Lazy Booking. We're brought to you by our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find him on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. You can find him in Burlington, Cherry Hill, and Princeton, New Jersey. No appointment necessary. So go ahead, check out the doc. Again, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Also brought to you by Ambuck Services, any kind of gutter guards, gutter cleaning, deck insulation, restoration. Leaves are going to start falling off the trees, guys. You're going to start getting that stuff in your gutters. Get those things clean. Get your house in order. Check them out. Let Michael Ambrose know that we sent you. You're going to get 20% off. That's AMBUCKservices.com. Topic of conversation tonight, Maddie. We got a lot, enough on the table. We're going to talk WWE. We're going to talk the upcoming WWE Draft. And our topic of conversation brought to you by Philly Drinkers. Get all your cool A2D merch there. Show shirts, A2D shirts, Philadelphia-inspired shirts. Bad things happen in Philadelphia shirts have dropped over there. Shorts, tumblers, anything you need, a fall collection. Go check them out. PhillyDrinkers.com. Shout out to Alex for a great job he does over there. Topic of conversation, Maddie. WWE Draft is going to fix the issues with creative on SmackDown. Agree, disagree. We want to hear from you guys in the chat, so please drop in your comments. We're also going to touch on some points. What's up, Kevin? Kevin chopping in. Ted as well. What's up, Ted? We got a lot. There's a lot of issues, obviously, with Raw, and it didn't, in my opinion, wasn't any different this week. Monday Night Rerun.
Joey
DiBarnino says Ali. Really? Yeah, Joey. Ali, and we're going to talk about that. I'm not surprised by it. We'll dive into that in a few minutes. But Maddie, I do want to get your opinions on this. In terms of how the draft is, and it's a 2-night event, starting on SmackDown, ending on Raw. How do you feel that Raw itself will benefit from a shakeup? Do you think that this will fix some of the issues over there?
It can. The question is when they bring in certain talent to help fix up some of the issues they've got there, will they utilize it properly? That's the real question here.
That's the $1 million question, Maddie.
Yeah, because the problem is that with the talent they currently have, they could do a good show with the talent they've got already, but the problem is they're not using it all that well. And then that's their biggest issue, So I have my doubts until if they can put them if they can get the right wrestlers and put them into right spots and utilize them properly, great. If they just take them and put them out there and just throw them into nothing angles, shit that don't go nowhere, stuff that makes no sense, it's like nothing changed. They just have different wrestlers now on Raw doing nothing like they did 2 weeks ago. Nothing much changed.
Yeah, it's not been very good, Maddie. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, we call it Monday. Me and my buddies, we call it Monday Night Rerun for a reason. There was a really, really funny headline that came up last night on I think it was Fightful.com, and I think it kind of was very telling on how the programming has been. And the headline was, "The Hurt Business gets pivotal win." Number 8 over Apollo Crews in an apparent best of 15 series. and this is kind of where we're at, I mean, how excited I think we got when let's look at the Dominic Mysterio situation right now, right? How excited were we to see Dominic come out and make his debut, and we were really impressed at SummerSlam, and then you get another match or two after, but they were kind of different stipulations, so it was like, okay, we're going to see a little something different. But that was August. It's now October. He's on every week pretty much in the ring, and he's faced 2 people, Buddy Murphy and or Seth Rollins. They had one triple threat tag match with Garza and man, I'm having a brain fart right now. Good Lord. Oh my God. Andrade, damn, I couldn't think for a second. With Garza and Andrade, and I don't even remember who else was in that match. That's how bad it is. I mean, I can't even keep up with what week is what and who's facing who because it's the same thing every week. But we're kind of, it is. It's Groundhog Day. It's wrestling's version of Groundhog Day. You know, we talked about the fact that we were going with the Hurt Business. How long did the recruitment take of Cedric Alexander, right, Maddie? That started in May.
Yeah.
May, and we're still seeing Apollo Crews and Ricochet going up against them, and obviously Ali too, and that changed hands, and we'll get into that. But good.
I mean, I was gonna say, you know, we waited 20 years for Sasha and Bayley to finally start fighting each other. Are we really that surprised that it's taking them this long to pull the trigger on other rivalries or other storyline angles? It really shouldn't surprise anybody by now how long it's taken them at this point.
Yeah, it's brutal, though. It's tough to watch the same program over and over and over, week after week after week. And you know, we're fans. I watch partially because I'm a fan, partially big time because we do a show here. And now we're kind of doing the Monday night recaps. Andy says, "What's up, Crumb? Sorry, I couldn't bless you with my presence." No, we're good, man. Got to make that money. Have a great show. Hey, make that money. You got to be good at something in life. We know it isn't this, so. But you know, there's been a lot of creative issues. I don't know if they're at a stalemate or what, because you know we talked about it. Greg says I disagree. They're more deeply rooted issues than one draft could fix, kind of like the Eagles, Sixers, Phillies.
Oh.
It's a fair point. And you know,
the Eagles won, so there you go. Things are getting better.
They did win, Maddie. Yes, they did. They won. Yay. They're in first place after week 4. It's unbelievable that they have their first win of the season, and that puts them in first place. I've never heard of that before.
Such a great division.
I digress. But, you know, I think, you know, we're seeing a little different side of Buddy Murphy. Maybe that's positioning him for post-draft, kind of tying up the loose ends maybe with Seth. I'm sure that that's not going to be the case. And that's kind of to Greg's point. That's kind of where I worry. See, I feel like they're at a stalemate with the talent they have on there. So a shakeup could be good. It is. That's the other Hurt Business is the ratings right now, Joey. However, on the flip side, I didn't see a lot of tying up loose ends of programs this week. You know, we're seeing Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt get into a program. It's pretty obvious that one of them is going to swap shows. I think KO switching to Raw could be a good thing. And probably, I'm assuming him and Wyatt because I think they're going to want to get Bray away from Roman for the time being. And then on the flip side, I would imagine that Alexa Bliss would switch hands if Bray Wyatt switches hands. I think they're kind of handcuffed together. I don't think that we're going to get Otis and Mandy on the same show. They just broke that up storyline-wise. Maybe it happens. I don't know. You know, I've heard John Morrison's name is a name to be floated, to be moved. I think that could be beneficial for him. But I just didn't see enough of, like, let's tie up some loose ends to leave some mystery, you know, going into this. And that's concerning to me.
I mean, I think it's because they must have certain angles that they really have long payoffs for that they want to, whether it's going to be a good payoff or it's going to be a shitty payoff. It seems like they wrote several storylines to still be here, possibly around till Survivor Series. So because of that, I think that that's why we haven't seen that wrapping up. And is that the smart thing to do, to put the draft right here? Absolutely not. If you're going to have storylines that are going to last until Survivor Series, like you were saying, leaves no mystery as to what can happen and what can't happen, pretty much is going to also hurt your ratings because then people don't want to watch because, like, well, if I already know what's going to happen, why do I want to watch? Some people do it, but not everybody does it. Some people just don't like any spoilers or just knowing what's going to happen off the bat. To me, they probably should have picked a better a better time period to do this than if they had already had these long-term storylines planned out. Maybe wait till next year after WrestleMania or something like that. Just don't do a draft this year. I mean, yeah, I get it. You need a shakeup of some kind, but it's like, you know what? At this point, you had Sasha and Bayley showing up on Raw and SmackDown all the time. Screw it. Just have other wrestlers do it at this point. Just have a breakdown of the freaking whole thing there, because it's not like anybody's really following it half the time. They're just floating people on the shows anyway, because it's like, well, we got to get this rating up, so we got to have this storyline here, or we got to do that. It's like, then why even bother having a draft this year? Just go have a draft next year. Worry about it down the road. If you got these long-term storylines, don't, ruin a draft rating just because, you got these long-term storylines planned out. Just let them play out, I get it, though. Shake-up, it kind of is necessary, especially if you got something good planned for them. But, just seems bad timing.
Yeah, see, that's the thing for me, though. I don't think it's bad timing. I think, if anything, they desperately, who wouldn't want to be handcuffed to Alexa? You're right, Greg. I actually disagree with it being bad timing. That's the problem, is that they desperately need to change the programming. And my concern is that what's confusing is that Bruce Pritchard is the head of creative on both shows. He's overseeing creative on both shows. It's not like before where, Bruce was doing one show and Eric was doing another, or Paul was doing another. I mean, whatever. It was Heyman and Bischoff, and then Pritchard and Heyman. We're not seeing that. There's elements of Raw that could be great, but it's overkill. Like the Dominic Seth feud was very good in the beginning, but now we're 2 months in, and it's not even like they're taking time to let the story breathe and develop. And the story stinks too. That's the other thing. Talk about this show called lazy booking. It's so uncreative with what they're doing, but it started really strong, and they could have let that breathe, and they didn't. Instead, we've seen the same thing over and over. What did we take out of this week? That she DM'd Buddy Murphy and said, "Hey, I feel like Dominic's the golden child." Okay, I mean, every sibling feels that way. So what's the big story about that? Or if anything, it's more creepy that this 30-year-old guy is continuing to have DM conversations with a 19-year-old girl. That's a little weird to me.
Yeah.
And again, too, unless they're completely blind, maybe because Ray is half blind at this point, it just comes off real cheesy, too. And Dominic's like, what do you mean? He can't be changed. Didn't you see what he did? And by the way, he's not the one that did that to your dad's eye. Seth did that to your dad's eye. So he's not the one that did it to Ray. I don't know. It comes off so bad, so corny. And it's the end game. To me, the end game is ultimately, I think, to get Buddy Murphy against Seth. And I said that a few weeks ago before this started. I think Seth's going to put Buddy over before he takes his hiatus with Becky having their child. But I don't know, man. I can't get into. I feel like they could do that without doing this cheesy ass storyline with Mysterio.
There's a number of things they could have done. They could have had Buddy and Seth, go for the. You could do if we're gonna go lazy route, just do an easy lazy route. Go for the tag titles and fail to win them. It's lazy, but you don't sacrifice. You don't ruin Dominic's first rivalry with this shit. You just go ahead and be like, oh, okay. They failed to win the tag belts. Seth's pissed at him because he's the one who takes the pins, and he's the one who's keeping on losing. So it's just like, you know what? I don't need you, screw you, or beats on him or something, and then Buddy's like, okay, screw you, I'm going to beat you now. If you're going to go the laser route, you might as well just go there. It makes more sense than having him do this stupid shit with Dominic and his sister. It's another one of those perfect examples of pushing someone very hard because they're somebody's kid in Dominic, and then secondly, also pushing the daughter because it's also somebody's somebody's father or somebody's daughter. The point is that you put them in this angle, it's not necessary. You could have Dominic Mysterio, if you let, like you were saying, if you let the storyline breathe out where he got beat at SummerSlam. He goes through some kind of traumatic feeling there, let the audience connect with him of just like, Seth not only beat him, but broke him mentally, and broke Mysterio mentally as well. You could go to that route, and while they were showing that at SummerSlam, they continued to they just didn't let it breathe. It's like, then they go the route of Buddy Murphy and the sister and everything. I'm like, they didn't have to do that. It's very unnecessary at this point.
Well, like, even if you're going to go the route and you're going to bring the Mysterio family involved, it's just it's a weird storyline with an older guy DMing a young girl. And to me, like, even if you're going to go this route, you don't have to take that turn to it. You could have it where, you know what, Seth, Ray, even Dominic, they're both on the table. Once the family gets involved, like, to see the brutality done in front of the daughter, maybe that's something that Buddy's like, ooh, I don't know, man. Like, that's his young daughter. Maybe that's his wake-up call. Like, she's not a pro wrestler, and Seth is insisting on torturing them and making them watch this brutality. Like, you could just go by that and be like, you know what? At the point where we're bringing his wife and his daughter in and forcing them to watch this brutality against their son / brother and father / husband, that to me is believable. It's better than this just weird, like, Seth stealing his phone. So does Buddy not put a passcode on his phone?
Guess not.
I'm just curious. Like, and how did Seth, like, get those images of the DMs? Did he airdrop them to himself? Are they on the same Wi-Fi? He's airdrop. I don't know. I mean, does Seth have an iPhone and Buddy does, and they're doing airdrop? Maybe not. What if one has
maybe in kayfabe, he's just a really hardcore hacker. When he goes to the hotel room, he pulls out his laptop and he's able to hack into anything. He can go into government shit if he wants to, but he wants to waste his time and, hack into his buddy's phone so that way. Oh, and his name is Buddy. And take those DMs.
Yeah, it's a struggle for me to get through that. But I think that's two people that could use a shake-up big time. Then you flip around and again, let's get back to, right now we're going week or month, number 3 now of Drew and Orton, to where we've actually circled back to destroy the Legends again.
Yeah,
I was okay with the program as it went at SummerSlam. Why do we have to bring the Legends back? And now we're doing night vision goggles. Like, there's a pandemic, man. Like, why are these guys, like, hanging out just playing cards with no masks on in the middle of the building? I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I just feel like it's so lazy. And maybe because they knew the draft was coming, they're just dragging it on and stretching stuff out just to get to the draft. But again, I would have been encouraged if we saw some of this stuff finally wrap up this week. We did it.
Well, and you're right. I mean, and if you're going to do that, where you're building up towards the draft, okay, so we've wrapped up this storyline. Here's an idea. Have Drew defend the WWE title on Raw against somebody that's never had a shot at the WWE title. Somebody that you could legitimately say, let's give them a shot and let's see what they can do. Just for the shits and giggles of it, it's just like, okay, we got the draft coming up. We know this person's not going to win. This is a chance for them to have a shot at the WWE title, chance for them to be in a big match on Raw. It's a chance to get their stock up or what have you. And then you can apply as like, oh, well, that must mean his stock must have rose up in the draft big time. We'll see if he's getting taken real early on, or something like that, Like, you could go with that if you want to wrap up the Randy Orton storyline and not squeeze more blood out of that stone that was unnecessary.
I just don't, like, what qualifies Randy at this point? And honestly, I thought during COVID, Randy has been one of their all-stars and has been one of the bright spots to keep the program going. But that being said, at this point, 2 months in, and he continues to lose. What qualifies Randy Orton as a number 1 contender again for the title?
I guess the argument in kayfabe is that the Legends interfered in a match that had no disqualifications. That's ridiculous.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. Again, even if they're going to go back to Drew and Orton for the next pay-per-view just to kind of bridge to Survivor Series, fine. No problem. If you're going to do that, I don't need the Legends bit in the backstage. Pete Evans chiming in. What's up, Pete? My co-host of Birds of a Feather, A2D personality. Frank Vespi, hey, yo, sorry to bother you at work. Throws toothpick. Frank from The Fix, one of our producers. Yeah, I'm just not a fan, man. Not a fan. And I don't know. I'm bored with Raw. It's very difficult to get through Monday Night Raw at this point. We did get the makeup for the women's tag team title this week. And what did they do? The exact same spot that they did, well, before the match, but what did they do with the women's tag team champions? Literally the exact same thing they did, the last time they were on television 2 weeks ago, which is put Lana through the table with the exact same move, the Samoan drop. So it's, again, Monday Night Rerun. It's the exact same thing I just saw. And, listen, I get it. You're pissed that Rusev went to, now Miro, his real name, went to AEW, but I'm kind of over the let's punish his wife because of his action stuff at this point.
It's just petty. But you know what? Vince has been petty in the past, so it's no surprise he's being petty now.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Not a good look. But in terms of the poll question, I have to agree. Whether I want to or not, because I have to think that some new talent infused in here can make this program better, because they are spinning their wheels big time on Monday Night Raw. It's the complete opposite, Maddie, on SmackDown. We talked about it the last few weeks, right? SmackDown is continuing to have fresh programs, to invest in. Even though it took us forever to get to Sasha and Bayley, we're here. And whether I liked how quickly they brought her back from the neck thing, the actual program, very, very good. Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, how intriguing is that? I mean, she is doing some great work right now, Alexa Bliss. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a whole new dimension that we've never seen before from her. So that's great.
Yeah, it's a whole new development to the character that we never saw coming and have never seen before. And I thought that her exchange with Kevin Owens, who is no slouch on the microphone, was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super intriguing. Listen, I like Braun showing up on Raw. Dean Yates, they screwed the whole draft concept up, to be honest. It should be for the NXT call-ups to give in that real sports feel. Have Raw and SmackDown trades throughout the year as sports fans as well. Who doesn't love a trade deadline special? Have it be around the Rumble, and with it being wrestling, you'll never have a deadline. Start it all back up day after Mania as your opening day. I like the idea, Dean. I like the idea a lot. I don't hate the concept. There's Chucks. Well, gentlemen,
Hey,
what's
Chucks.
good? My co-host, the Birds of Feather. What's up, Chucks? I don't hate the concept that they have now, Dean, because I do believe that a shakeup is necessary to keep the show's fresh for the year. It's almost like the start of a new, we always say after WrestleMania is supposed to be the start of the new season, but I almost feel like they have 2 times in the year. It's the draft and it's the day after WrestleMania to kind of get things going. And they desperately need something now. Desperately. And in fairness too, I don't think there's enough talent right now at NXT that you wouldn't purge NXT if you were to take the talent out of there. And that's the one thing I don't like about that idea, Dean. I don't know about you, Maddie, but I don't like the idea. NXT is the third brand at this point, and although it's still somewhat of a developmental, I still feel like there has to be a level of talent that has to be met there, and it's very unlike the size of the rosters on Raw and SmackDown, which are oversaturated with too much talent. AEW is too, by the way. There's too much professional wrestling talent now, and I don't mean that in a negative, But there's so many high-level talented people and not enough companies.
Yeah, not enough TV time for everybody.
Right. It's just, and that's why we always get into that. Like everybody wants everyone pushed. You can't push everybody. And we can't do the rotation of, okay, you had your turn with the title. You could literally go to the back of the line. We'll see you in 2 years. Like you just can't do that. You have
No,
to have
you're
cornerstones of your company, particularly on the main, on the the corporate level or the mainstream
right.
level.
You need your face. You need your face, or you need your top heel, or to work with talent in the main event scene. So either to get them ready for a world title run, or to continue to make their world title run mean something. And and Mr. Speed was saying, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. Rest in peace,
Yeah,
man. Rock legend, one of the best bands ever, one of the greatest guitar players ever. He's now fronting the lead guitar role in that Band in the Sky with Freddie Mercury as the lead vocalist and Lemmy Kilmister on bass. But yeah, I will say, in terms of where they're at with NXT, I don't even really consider NXT really a developmental anymore. It's the third brand. It's on TV now. At this point, it's like it's better than Raw, definitely. It's better than SmackDown, in my opinion. And that's no offense to SmackDown in the development, but I just like the wrestling side of it. I think it's just I feel like the matches are so. They have the quality matches in their storylines or not. I will give them that. That's a shaky ground.
I couldn't disagree with you more, by the way. We'll get into that in a second, but continue.
All right, then. But the point is, though, is that for me, I don't really look at NXT anymore as really a developmental ever since it got put onto television. It's just like, okay, you're putting it on TV. Clearly, it was just to block AEW. But, at the end of the day, it's like if you're not just kept in the WWE network anymore where you got to pay to watch it, it's like, all right, this ain't really a developmental league anymore. This is the third brand next to Raw and SmackDown. It's just, it is now. It is what it is. It's big time for them.
See, I have to disagree with you, Maddie. I think NXT has taken a massive decline over the last few months. It's not as good of a program. I mean, some of the in-ring work is very, very good, but when you're a mainstream wrestling program, AEW has learned that too, and they're working on doing storylines. It's not, they said it was going to be all about the wrestling, but is it all about the wrestling, Maddie? With the Dark Order and all this other shit they got going on? No, it's not just about the wrestling. They're learning to compete on a mainstream level. You have to have compelling storylines, and not just stories told in the ring. You have to tell those stories, with promos, with packages, and whatnot. And I think that AEW has turned a lot of corners. I think they still have a long way to go. I think there's some things to work on, but AEW's programming has improved vastly. I feel like NXT has taken a hit. They have their usual suspects that are great, the Garganos, the Ciampas, but that, again, now we're looking around and we're looking at Damien Priest, man. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I think he's a great worker. He's okay. I think he's 40. No, and I'm not knocking his age, but you're pushing a guy who's 40 years old, who his character is so vanilla. It's so very like, if I hand you a book and I say, this is the book of how to be a bad guy. This is the book of how to be, a healer. This is the book on how to be a face, and you literally follow it bullet point by bullet point to a T. That's him. It's the skeleton of what it is, and there's no charisma with him. Even when he tries to be charismatic, I think he's corny. I'll give him credit for his match again. I'll give him credit for his match at TakeOver, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, long term, and I think he's been a massive failure, and they continue to push this guy. It's like Baron Corbin 2.0 to me.
See, I think what happened with that is that they saw what he did in ROH, and they saw him being Punishment Martinez. And they saw what he could do in the ring there, and they saw his programs with guys like Jay White, with Jeff Cobb, and other great wrestlers that he got to work with in ROH, and they thought, okay, he'll come here and we'll do something with him. We'll just throw him into this and it'll work. It's like, no, because he was a character in ROH. He was very character-based, and his character was straightforward. He loved hurting people. That was simply what his goal was, just to hurt people. That worked in ROH. unfortunately, they didn't just bring that. They didn't bring that to NXT. They just wanted him to do something else. I don't know what exactly they want him to do. That's the one thing that I'll be confused. Like, you're right though in that regard. He is very vanilla in terms of best bad guys. Just like, when you were Punishment Martinez, what you did was you just got sick pleasure out of beating the shit out of people. I guess they just don't want it because it's too controversial. But that's like they should just go that route. Just like have him enjoy it. Have him beat the shit out of people. Like, have him beat somebody up so bad and he just gets off on it. But again, controversy, and WWE is allergic to controversy. They make their own by stupid decisions. That's pretty much the controversy that you get out of WWE nowadays.
So Ted, interesting. Ted says Johnny turning heel wasn't the best move. Dude is not a heel. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. I have my opinion, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on Ted's take.
I don't think he was a bad heel. I think he's a good chicken shit heel. Honestly, I don't think he can be a tough guy heel. Ciampa can be a tough guy heel. He can't, and there's just a different dynamic to it. But I like the fact that his wife is a heel too, along with him, and they're both just being chicken shit heels. So I like it. His wife takes falls for him. He puts her in harm's way. He acts like a good regular piece of shit in my opinion. And Johnny, when he gets that smirk, you just want to punch him in the face. So, it's just like, what? I don't mind him as a heel, honestly. I think he's done a really good job of it, and I think he makes it his own. He's different. He's not your prototypical heel. He's the scaredy cat heel, and I think he does that very well.
Yeah, see, I would agree with you. I think the first attempt to turn him heel was a little bit of a failure. I wasn't a fan of how they tried to position him there. But this version, I think is very good. It's the opposite of what we talked about with Damien Priest, right? You're absolutely right. I couldn't describe it any better. A chicken shit heel. He's that guy who will cut the corners. And in terms of, you're talking about Candice, right? He'll pull Candice in front of him. It's so Macho Man-esque in terms of like when he used to pull Elizabeth and he used to pull Sherry in front of him. Those kind of moves, I think it's almost a throwback because you don't see that anymore. You don't see people, with the way our society is now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, wrestling has changed and you don't see a lot of that. So to see kind of that reprise of, the female, valet or wife, whatever, professional wrestler who you're hooked up with, whatever it is, to have her kind of be that, that shield to protect you because the good guy's always going to hold up. So you're going to be able to get your shots in, right? I love it. I love the way that they turned Candice initially in that cinematic presentation with Tommaso Ciampa. I was a big fan of that. But I really enjoy Johnny now. And I agree with you. He's a pest. He's an annoying bastard. He's one of those guys who's like, it's almost like the Napoleon syndrome, right? Where, he's a smaller guy, but he's better than everybody. And he's a hard worker and he's going to let you know how hard he works, how he's going to outwork you. And he's better than you. And I dig it. I really enjoyed it a lot. So I would agree. I like this version. I was not a fan when they tried to turn him heel the first time around. And eventually we'll get back to face Johnny Gargano. And we know that at some point. And yeah, ultimately, do I think that in the long run grand scheme of things, is Johnny Gargano going to be able to do, 2 years of a heel run? In my opinion, probably not. But get a good year and a half run out of this and shred out of this before you find another reason to turn him back face.
Yeah. I mean, that's great, though, to see that he can pull it off, and to see like, okay, so we know he can do that. We know he can do that side of it. And it's like, that's great to see because when you see somebody who's, I wouldn't say he was he was typecasted for a while as sort of the underdog, babyface, white meat style, to see him be able to pull this kind of heel off, it's like, good. He's got that range,
Yeah, and I think too, as much as I'm a huge Gargano guy, and that he's one of my favorite wrestlers. I think he's one of the top 5 to 7 wrestlers in the entire world. Honestly, to see, I feel that it got a little bit stale. It got a little bit too cutesy with his face run. I think he needed a change. I think he needed a drastic change. Again, only if it's just temporarily to even if it's just to get you to the point where you miss getting that Johnny wrestling face back at some point. And sometimes they do that, right? Sometimes it's just absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? We take certain things for granted. You take it away for a little while and you get it back and it works. I thought that happened with Seth for a while there. You know, look at Seth as I think in reverse with Seth. I loved Seth as a heel. His first run, we got him back as a face, and I thought he had a strong run as a face. But it ran its course, and it made you realize, man, I really miss Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth. And he took it to a whole new dynamic with this whole Messiah character that I love. I don't love the feud he's in. I think that they need to get him out of that. Although he's going away for a while anyway, so maybe now's not the time. But I think that was really powerful and beneficial for him to get him back to being in a heel run. Because he's another guy who could be be a real DB if you want him to be, and he plays it very, very well.
He does. It's kind of like when you see certain wrestlers and you see certain guys who, you know, throughout history and through current, you kind of look at it as like, okay, this person, for the most part, his career or her career, he or she is babyface because they've got that certain ability to them or that certain charisma to them or that certain look that screams underdog or babyface or just whatever. The others can say, okay, well, this person is a heel just because of their character's attitude or because the way that they come off in the ring or the way that they sell or what have you, they're a heel for most of their career. And then every once in a while, if something gets stale, like you were saying, sometimes you do change them. Very few wrestlers can play both sides of it and do it for multiple years. One of the few wrestlers you can throw out there is Jericho. How many times did Jericho turn heel and babyface and would do it year after year? He was like a babyface from like 2000 to 2001, turned heel, was a heel from 2001 all throughout 2002, all the way up until 2004 when he turned babyface again. So it's like, Jesus, Jericho could do all both, and he could do a year in and year out, which is pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Jericho's the prime example of that. But I like Gargano right now in his position in the company. I have no issue with that. So let's play a little game, Maddie. Give me three names. Give me 3 men and 2 women that you think could benefit switching brands right now.
All right, let me see here. One that I think could really benefit by switching brands, Ricochet.
Okay.
I think if you put Ricochet on another show, I think he'll have an opportunity to blossom there, get him out of his old rivalries. I would like to see him get another opportunity doing something else. Let's see here. I'm debating Braun, but then I also think to myself, maybe not. Maybe he's the guy who stays and you bring other people in to work with him on that show.
See, I think Braun definitely switches brands. I think Braun goes to Raw and has a feud with Keith Lee.
Okay, then.
Because I don't think they moved. So I don't believe that they're going to move Keith Lee because I believe that unless they swap champions, I think it's inevitable that we're getting Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre at some point. So I don't believe that they move Keith Lee. However, for Hell in a Cell, because I believe that might be your main event for Survivor Series. So I believe for Hell in a Cell, they're going to want to kind of keep Keith fresh and give him something new. And I think, you know, we saw that image before this Monday. We saw that image at the Royal Rumble of Keith Lee and Braun Strowman in a stare down. People were totally into it. I think it is something fresh that you could do for Hell in a Cell that could be beneficial for both guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Braun would be the heel in that program. Mm-hmm. Keith would be the face. And now, let's see. Ladies wise, you know, it's weird. You know, for me, I would say maybe I would say maybe putting Nikki on the opposite show that Alexa's on. And the reason why I think it gets a chance for her to be on her own and for her to be her own thing, because she's been tied to Alexa for a couple years now. I think it's time we broke them off. And it's perfect because Alexa's now with The Fiend. You can do that, you know. And I think that it'd not be a bad idea to put Nikki on the opposite show of Alexa. No matter where Alexa goes, Nikki has to be on the opposite.
Agreed. If I'm going to women-wise, I would agree with you. I would go Lacey Evans. I think could use a swap.
Yeah.
And I think that Peyton Royce could use a swap. I want her and Billie Kay to be on opposite brands. I don't think we need to tie those two together anymore. So I think that's two women that could benefit from a swap right now. Even if I was to throw a third name out there, I don't know how involved she's going to be, but Mickie James I would like to see swap shows as well. Men-wise, oof. See, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be interested to see what they do with the New Day. Because I would love to see a program between Big E and Drew McIntyre at some point down the road.
Maybe also one with him and Keith Lee somewhere down the line. Maybe even have them as a tag team at some point. You know, that would no tagging for them.
No more tag teams for. Listen, Big E has done his gamut of tag team wrestling. He did it with Duff originally. He's already a part of one of the greatest tag teams in the history of pro wrestling. You don't need that from him. He's a Hall of Famer already. I want to see what the guy can do as a singles guy. I've liked what I've seen already. We know he can cut a promo. I don't want him to touch a tag team with Keith Lee.
All right then.
Maybe a feud. I don't know.
I'm down with the feud.
Let's see him up against Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Business. I'd be in for that. You know, he's a big guy who could be, you know, even though he's not big height-wise in terms of some of the other guys, when you talk about the builds and the mass, he's right up there with Bobby Lashley. I think that could be a really hot feud. You know, I honestly feel like as a unit, they need to move the Hurt Business over to SmackDown and get them out of this predicament that they're in with Retribution, because it's very conflicting. Joey asked, are they ever going to give Lacey Evans a title? I don't know, man, but they should. They missed the boat already. There was an opportunity there.
Yeah, that ship sailed.
Real opportunity. I hope down the road, Joey. I don't know about right now. Maybe she's one that ends up back in NXT or down in NXT and gets a run with the title down there. I'd be fine with that. We'll see. But I feel like there's such conflicting storylines now with the Hurt Business. Because now, let's get into it this week on Raw. Because since we're kind of here, we got to this point now, Maddie, where the Hurt Business approaches Apollo, Cedric, and Mustafa Ali, and they say, hey, you know, the draft's coming up, but for one night only, this is another open opportunity for you guys, because we haven't given you guys 5 months of opportunities to join the Hurt Business. So we're going to give you another night. Whatever, fine. They tease that it could be Ricochet who has the change of heart, which I'm not convinced that's over with. Particularly if somehow they break the Hurt Business up in this draft, I could see the Hurt Business still being a unit, however, in segments on each show. I hope that's not the case, but they could do that. Maybe Ricochet, whatever show he's on, joins that segment. However, they're positioning these guys as heels, and now you have Mustafa Ali, who essentially, for all intents and purposes, does the turn and reveals himself, at least for the time being, I'm not convinced that he's the ultimate guy, as the leader of Retribution, who then comes in, and now the Hurt Business are the faces in this whole situation. It's very confusing. How does the face turn heel on the heel team. I just don't get it. It's very confusing, Maddie.
Well, it didn't help anything too that we never really got a full idea of what exactly Retribution's going to be. Like, we don't know if, like, okay, is Retribution trying to be heels, or are they trying to be baby faces, or are they just going to be an outlaw group? And if they're going to be an outlaw group, then in my opinion,
I think they're going to be heels, and I think they're going to be an outlaw. I mean, there's nothing that they've done yet that tells me that they've done any kind of face work.
I got you. I was just thinking more of like that anti-hero group, you know, because every generation has to have one since the NWO.
If you follow them on Twitter, everything they responded with, which, by the way, some people have been critical. Why do you have them on Twitter? If you follow them on Twitter, you find out exactly why. They're great. But having them on Twitter exposes that they are 100% completely a heel group.
Gotcha. Well, with that, you know, that whole him being the leader and everything, I scratched my head at that because I was thinking, like, listen, I'm not saying Ali isn't good in the ring. I'm just saying, like, he's been presented as a lower tier starting card, mid card talent. He's never been put. You know, they flirted with the idea of him being in a main event match once, and then he got hurt, and then he got replaced, and then that was that. They did the whole, like you would like to call it, the make a difference Ali thing, which I guess this ties that all together because of it did make a difference because he was exposing liars as the hacker and everything like that. But I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like, yeah, the way he's been presented, it's like by no means would I buy it. You know, like, to me, I don't buy it because the way he's been presented, like, he's been presented as a lower mid tier card wrestler. It's like he's not been considered a threat. He's not been considered that, or he's not a wrestler that was prominent in NXT. Since there's a lot of NXT talent that's populating this group, it's like, well, then, you know, it would have made more sense if you had an NXT talent that was the leader, you know, or something. Hell, I even thought of an idea when I saw it. I'm like, you know, wouldn't it have been interesting if it was a female who was leading this group? Just out of because to me, it would have been interesting, the idea of that, having a female who's on the mic who can go back and forth with somebody like MVP or somebody else. And then it brings into the question of, as a male, well, I can't hit her. You know, I can't hit her. And then at the same time, she's like, oh, well, you can't hit me. I'm going to hit you. And she hits them, or she low blows them, or she does anything to interfere in the matches, or whatever the fuck. And then it gets to that whole psychology in there. Since this is the way WWE can flirt with the intergender thing without having to go to it, you know, without having to actually have those kind of matches. You know what I'm talking about? You can flirt with the idea, but you don't have to go all the way with it. To me, that would have made a little bit more of an intrigue. Oh, okay, I'm actually interested to see where this goes. With Ali, I just feel like, if he's the puppet and not the puppet master, fine. But if he's the puppet master, then it's like, sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it because it's just how Ali's been presented this whole time.
Yeah. Justin, we'll get back to your question. He says, do you see any surprises during the draft? We'll get back to that in a second. In terms of this, so I'm not surprised that Ali's a part of it, because I think we talked about it a month ago, right? That I believe that the hacker would be tied into this. You know, people said, oh, they dropped the hacker storyline. I don't think I fully believe that they dropped the hacker storyline, particularly when this kicked off. I felt like this could be a part of it. So there's that. Greg, I missed the Attitude Era where the divas get wrecked.
Everybody wanted to be ECW back then.
I would say it's very underwhelming to me at this rate. If this is the leader, it's a big swing and miss for a program that I feel like is already fighting an uphill battle. I feel like Ali being a part of it would be great and can make sense, and that could kind of be the tip of the scale of, you know, we said that there's going to be people, you know, that are a part of this, that are in the locker room already, and we have plans and you have no idea, look over your shoulder. I think that could be a great a great way to start to turn this, and I think they've kind of alluded to that. However, they made him look like a leader this week, but I'm not convinced that he is. So I have an idea of a storyline that I don't think that they'll do, but I would love to see.
Okay.
But before I mention that, to me, if this is the end game, it's a miss because the leader should be T-Bar or Dijakovic, whatever you want to call him. I still call him Dominic Dijakovic. I ain't calling him T-Bar. But Dominic Dijakovic, because I think his promos have been excellent. Despite the goofy look, the promos have been excellent. We know the kind of worker that he is in the ring. He's believable to be a guy who could be the figure of this. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity if this is the end game. I don't know that I believe it's the end game. I'm going to toss an idea out there, and I want to see what you think.
Okay.
And I threw this in a group chat earlier, and I want to get your opinion. And to me, I almost go the aces and eights route here, to where, you believe, Ali comes in, and Ali appears to be the leader of this group, but he's not. No, he's not. There's another figure who will eventually present themselves, and I'm looking at a way to accomplish a few things in one full motion. So I think that you position it as Ali is that guy, and I think that you put the New Day on Monday Night Raw, and I think that you get Xavier Woods back, and you see the New Day against Retribution, and then all of a sudden Xavier Woods takes out that goddamn trombone, and he takes out his boys. And Xavier Woods reveals himself as the true leader behind this group. He's a great mouthpiece. Guy's already a Hall of Fame talent at this point. And it's a way to accomplish breaking up the New Day, which I feel like we all would agree. We're at that point now. Kofi's been the world champion. I think Big E has a huge future as a single star.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think it's a way. It's almost like when you broke up the Shield, right? Everybody thought that Seth would be the guy that was left out. Roman's going to be a guy. Ambrose is going to be the guy. What do you do with Seth? Same thing here, because Kofi's been champion. Big E's doing big things. Xavier's been on the shelf. And then boom. Xavier says, hell no. I'm the guy. I put this together. While I helped Kofi get to this point. I stepped away and Big E took my opportunities. And Big E, they almost forgot that I was here. However you want to spin it. And have him be the guy who's the head. And because he's so tech savvy with everything, you could buy into him being the hacker and the guy who can go in and, overtake the technology of things. You could buy into that. You could tie in so many different things and different elements. Maybe I'm reaching with that part, but, I think that that's an opportunity to recover it. Similar to how you thought it was Devon, but it ended up being Bully, who was the head of Aces and Eights. I would love to see them do something like that, because I feel like other than that, man, you're missing a lot of. It's a totally swing and miss on this. Maybe even worse than what the Nexus was. And the Nexus was a hot angle that got chewed up and spit out and forgotten about very quickly. Then they created the bullshit core and all this and that. But man, it's that, or maybe Samoa Joe is a guy I would have loved to have seen emerge. I don't know if his in-ring career is done. I don't think anybody knows, because, he made it sound like it might be without an official ending of the match. Pete says one of them is getting drafted to Raw. I think that the New Day as a whole is going to get drafted to Raw. I think one way or the other, you're going to get a feud between Retribution and the New Day. Maybe the New Day takes the Hurt Business's place as the people to defend the company. I don't know, but they have to get the Hurt Business away from this. But what are your feelings on something like that, Maddie? That having the big swerve of Xavier's the guy who's the head behind it.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And the best part of it is that because he's coming back from a serious injury. I mean, he tore his Achilles tendon, which is a terrible injury to suffer. You can protect him if you're not 100% confident that he can get back into the ring. You can have him be the mouthpiece, but he's protected by everybody. So you can protect him in that regard so he doesn't have to get in the ring. Secondly, you also have the ability to give some credibility to the group immediately. And I'm not saying that the credibility couldn't be found with the talent that you have there, but right now, Retribution's in that spot of we don't know what they are. We don't know where we got an idea of what we think they're going to be, but we still don't know exactly where they're fitting. We know what they're going to do. We know what their position's going to be on the card and everything like that. But the question is, okay, how long does this go? Where are we going towards this? What's the end point? What's the main payoff here? We still don't know any of that because, again, everything's up in the air in terms of their leader, and you got to get this right. You can't fuck this up. You fuck up their leader, that's it. This group's dead in the water. But that's not a bad idea because it gives instant credibility to them because Xavier has been gone for a while, and on top of that as well, he's been a leader. I would argue he'd be the leader of New Day because he's the one who started it. And, in a way, you can have him then sell it on that, where Kofi and Big E, if they were doing that rivalry, be like, you guys may have gotten all the accolades, but don't forget, I'm the one who started that whole thing. If it wasn't for me, you guys would have probably not even be here right now because you were doing nothing when I got to you guys, which was true way back in the day when Kofi and Big E were literally doing nothing. They were in mid-card hell when Xavier approached them about being a part of the New Day. And, you could go that route with it. So there are good – I like that. I think that it does have – the possibilities are definitely there for that to work. And I think that would give them instant credibility. Because, like I said, you got to get the leader right. You have to get the leader right here. If you whiff on this, then forget it. This is the Nexus 2.0. And it's like, yep, all the promise in the world, and it fell right the fuck through, and now everybody's in trouble who's a part of this group.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just looking it up now, Maddie. He's been out for almost a year. He's been out. He had surgery last October, and the injury was a 6 to 12 month injury. So, to get back to Justin's question about will there be any surprises in the draft, Xavier Woods' return might be a surprise. So I'll toss that out there, that Xavier may be a guy who shows up. But it's around that time, Maddie, and maybe we see him at Survivor Series in some form or fashion going against Retribution, and he turns on his buddies. Kofi's out still, but turns on Big E and the New Day. And because I do believe that that's where they're going to end up. So I like it. It's something different. It's something I feel like could save the group because right now it's treading water for me right now, Maddie. Not loving what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It had potential in the beginning until they decided to put stupid names and stupid looks on it.
Yeah, and everything's still up in the air. Like, because again, there's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know who their leader is. And you're right, though. I'm not buying that it's Ali because that would just be a dumb decision on their part, And it's not going to make Ali any better either. But Joey has a good point. Maybe Ali's a lieutenant, which I'm fine with that. If he's a lieutenant, that makes perfect sense. That's great for him because he can boost himself up on that. But you're right. But there's just a lot we don't know right now. We don't know what direction they're heading in. We don't know exactly who their main rival's going to be if it's not going to be the Hurt Business, So it's just like, okay, so what exactly are they going to do? Are they going to go over everybody on the roster and destroy them? Are they going to continue to do that? Who's going to be the main guy? Who's going to go into those championship matches? Who's going to be the guy who's going to be the mid-card guy? Who's going to be the tag team? The lady? You need all these roles that usually fill stables. We don't really know exactly where everybody's at right now. So there's still a lot up in the air with them.
Yeah, and Pete down here says Woods makes so much sense. He's been out for almost a year now, and he can talk that talk. And on WWE TV, we have not seen him work as a singles wrestler. Absolutely. I know personally he is very good friends with Mustafa Ali. We've seen them in terms of some of the stuff that's been put out on the internet. So to me, that's a home run. And you accomplish so much in one fell swoop. Give them a great mouthpiece. Give them a guy who can work, who I think is believable and who is a Hall of Famer at this point. And break up the New Day. Let's get Big E away from the New Day now. I'm sorry, New Day. I've loved the 6 years of the New Day that we've had, but I'm ready for something different. And I know they have this amazing podcast. And who says that kayfabe's dead now? Why can't you continue your podcast but still break it up? We'll see. That's just an idea I had out there. So let's move on to let me see. Was there anything else from Raw that's really notable? I don't think so, right? I mean, Drew takes out Randy. Okay, cool.
Just a continuation of that storyline.
Whatever. All right, let's move on. So NXT TakeOver took place this Sunday night. NXT TakeOver 31. I want to get just some of your quick reactions to it before we wrap up the show here. You know, in terms of the overall card, how would you rate it on a scale of, you know, how many stars would you give it on the Meltzer scale, 1 to 5 stars? And, you know, just some of the highlights of the show for you.
Well, I did note that none of the championships changed hands. They all were retained, which was interesting because sometimes you do.
That.
Yeah. So far, you know, I mean.
What's up down south? VA in North Carolina says can't get into WWE but loves AEW. They've been booking the same matches over and over. It's tough. Monday Night Rerun down south. And hey, we talked about it earlier though. I think Smackdown is the opposite of that. But you're absolutely right. 3 hours. Your longest show is Monday Night Rerun. It's terrible. Sorry, Maddie.
I will be honest with you. I think at some point they should just end the 3 hour era, but they'll never do that because of the money. But they should.
Much money, Maddie. I mean,
I know.
I think the time has come where we need to just like drop they need to end it because we know that they're not. We know that they should in terms of the viewing quality, but they're not going to, and we all know that they're not. They make way too much money by having 3 hours.
I know. I think
contractually at this point, I don't think they're allowed to contractually.
No, you're right. I think because the network has them tied to that, so they can't do that. But yeah, it was just one of those things of, you know, it's just it clearly shows they don't know how to fill that 3 hours, or they're filling it with meh, and it's just like you have other options, but whatever. Anyway, so for highlights for me, I liked the women's title match, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae. I like Candice as a heel, just like Johnny in a lot of ways. They mirror each other in terms of being chicken shit. And I like the fact that Io is just an unbelievable talent. And, you know, her being the women's champion, I was a little surprised that they didn't decide to take the belt off her and put it on Candice. Was a little shocked by that because I thought, there's any belt that has a chance of changing, it's that one, in my opinion. Because I didn't see the NXT title changing. I didn't see Balor losing the title. Kyle O'Reilly's a great wrestler. I just didn't see him winning over Balor, I think because they want to keep the belt on Balor. And I don't think they were going to change the belt on Damien Priest. The Cruiserweight title, arguable, you could go either way with that. But when it comes to the women's title, I really thought that there was a good chance maybe Candice walks away with it, if not necessarily through honorable means. You could then have a rivalry between her and Io. But, yeah, it was still a really good match. So I had no problems with that one. That was a good matchup. As for, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty happy to see Kushida. Just because I love NJPW. And Kushida's a great wrestler. So it's just one of those, I know some people may not necessarily be a big fan of his gimmick, but he's an amazing wrestler. He's a great talent. I would like to see if maybe he'll be Cruiserweight champion one day because I think he'll have some great chances to help elevate that division more. And I like the fact that the Cruiserweight title's in NXT. That's another thing that I pulled out of that show. It's like, I'm so happy that the Cruiserweight title's here. It belongs here. It should have been here from the start. You know, looking back on it, it's like, you know what? Fuck it. It should have been here from the very beginning because it's emphasized wrestling. It's not about necessarily the big storylines, you know? But
Greg says, yeah, the B Show mocked me when I said Balor would retain. How you like me now, B Show? Everything you said in that comment, Greg, is spot on.
But Kyle O'Reilly, though, I mean, he looked great, so it's just like, for me, O'Reilly's not out of the realm of being a guy who can win the NXT title in the future. It's just that I think Balor just needs the belt. And that's the only reason why I think Balor retained it, honestly. And we'll see how long he keeps it, but it's not out of the realm that, you could have Kyle O'Reilly one day take the title off of him. Since it's such a wrestling-driven show, not necessarily storyline-driven, as we've been seeing throughout the three brands. But some of the highlights that I pulled out, those were some of the few of them. Damien Priest to Gargano. I found this one a little confusing, only because Gargano's a heel, Priest is a heel in a way, and I feel like...
Oh, no, Priest is a face now. He's not a heel.
Oh, I get it, but I just don't buy him as a face. I can't.
I don't buy him as anything. I buy he stinks.
Yeah, but I just felt like that match. I'm like, I wasn't as... I felt like I could take or leave that match, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it was terrible. I'm just saying,
but isn't that the pattern though, Matty? Isn't that why I call it Baron Corbin 2.0? Doesn't matter who they face. Doesn't matter how good a quality the match could has potential for. It's the same thing with Corbin before, right? I like Corbin as a worker, but there's something about the character that it's just like I don't care. It's always my least anticipated match on a card. And that's the same thing with Damien Priest. It's the match. I don't care who's fighting, who's in a match. It is always my least anticipated match on an NXT card.
Yeah, and it's pretty. Yeah, it was pretty weak, to say the least. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier on the show. It's because they didn't bring the gimmick that he had with ROH to NXT. It's like if they would just do things a little bit differently. In my opinion, I think this is what it is. He's here in WWE at the wrong time. If he had been in WWE years back when they were allowed to do blood and they were allowed to be a little bit more vicious, they were allowed to have more, ferocious content that they were able to put out on any network that they had at the time, I think he would have done a little bit better because you could get a little bit more out of it. But I don't think you can get a lot out of it right now, honestly.
Couldn't disagree with you more, man. I just don't think he has the personality to be on a mainstream show like a WWE program. I mean, I'm sorry, no offense to him. If he wants to be somebody's thug lackey and be behind them and be their, the guy that throws the weight around for chicken shit like an old school Shawn Michaels or Johnny Gargano now, sure, I could buy that. But he'll never be more than that in my eyes. I just don't get it. And you know what? He's old enough that he could have been around back then, Matty. Let's be real.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You're right.
Back then.
You're right.
I just there's not, to me, it's just a guy that's out of place company wise.
Yeah.
He's not in the right company.
No, you're right. I don't even know if he would.
Let me just say that.
Sure.
Let me just say that. I think that he could be better in another company. I don't think he fits WWE. I don't think he fits NXT. Maybe as a mid-card or undercard guy on AEW, I could buy it. There's 900 factions there. I'm sure he could fit one of them. But doesn't work for me in terms of any of the WWE programming right now or maybe ever.
Maybe he could be Taz's bodyguard.
He might work with that group. I can see that.
Yeah. Because I immediately thought, you know what? I could see him standing right next to Taz, just looking somebody down and be like, yeah, okay.
So how many stars do you give it, Matty, out of 5?
The whole show, I give it 3. I think that the in-ring work was fine. Storyline-wise, there were a couple that they were what they were. That storyline-wise, there weren't really all that much there. But wrestling-wise, the quality was there. If it had not had that good in-ring product, it would have been a 2. But because it has really good in-ring, I got to give it a 3. It's not the greatest NXT TakeOver. but not terrible. It's just right there in the middle. It's mediocre.
Yeah. For me, kind of just going down the card, I agree with you on Kushida. I'm liking the aggressive side of Kushida that we're seeing, and I think that he's in terms of the U.S. fans and the WWE fan base. I think that he's slowly putting himself on the map. And honestly, what better guy to do it against than the Velveteen Dream, who, in my opinion, should not even be on television. But I digress.
Because of all that, yeah.
But I'm a Kushida guy. That we were very excited when he signed with WWE, and I'm happy to see them get a win on TakeOver against somebody who has been positioned as one of the guys in the legacy over the last year or year and a half of NXT, 2 years, to see him get a big win like that. Santos Escobar and Isaiah Swerve Scott. This was the one match I could have seen the title change. I didn't think there was a chance any of the other titles would change. However, I would say that in terms of the match, good match. I like Escobar, and I'm a big fan of Shane Strickland, who's Isaiah Swerve Scott.
Yep.
Good match. Real good match. I
Yep.
like the feud here. I kind of thought that Escobar would win this match, though, because I keep wanting to call him Shane Strickland. Because Isaiah Swerve Scott has gotten over on him twice in the past. So made sense that Escobar gets the win here. I liked the match a lot. I thought it was a really good match. Gargano and Damien Priest, again, my least anticipated matches, and I'm as big of a Gargano guy as I am. I'm not excited for a Damien Priest match. Just not. It was the same way when Finn faced him. However, much like Finn, I think Gargano got the best out of him. The actual match was very, very strong. I was a big fan of it. So, good stuff. I guess they made the right decision. I don't know, with leaving the title on Priest. I don't think you want to hot potato it right now. But although I would like to see Gargano with a title. The big thing with Gargano as a face was that he always had the best matches on the NXT TakeOver cards, which is why he's Mr. TakeOver. However, he lost all the time. He always lost big matches for titles. Yeah, he ended up eventually becoming champion. But if we're going to turn him heel, I want to see him do the underhanded stuff that's going to get him that advantage over the top. Because why be a heel if you're not going to have the results of being a heel?
Maybe they're letting, because they're pushing Priest right now. Maybe they're keeping the belt on Priest and waiting for a multi-man match so he doesn't have to take a pin and Johnny pins the other guy.
It's pointless though, because eventually he's gonna have to take a pin because he gets a rematch for his title. It just seems pointless to me. For me, when you protect guys, unless you're talking about Roman, right?
Yeah.
Who we know could come out lose the title and come out the next, Friday night and win the title back. Much like we used to see Austin do back in the days, lose the title the night before, come out and beat Kane again the next night. You can make that argument in certain spots. To me, Damien Priest isn't a guy that there's no benefit to that. Taking a loss against Johnny Gargano, you don't need Gargano to pin somebody else. Gargano can do other underhanded things to win the title here. And that's where I like what they're doing with Gargano, but the whole thing to me was what he was doing was not working. He was falling short. So now, you know what? I'm going to have this new attitude. I'm better than everybody else. I'm the best wrestler in the world and this and that. But I got to cut those corners to get that edge, to get those wins. Everybody else does every single match that they have who's a heel. So I need to see more of that from Gargano to get the results. Otherwise, I can't justify the heel turn for Johnny Gargano because he's not doing anything different than what he was doing as a face in terms of results.
Yeah, that's true. Because, what's the difference? Yeah.
I mean, but, he got a lot out of him. Good match, strong match. Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, agreed. Great match. I really enjoyed that match a lot. I'm a big fan of Candice as a heel as well. Again, I like them both as a tandem. They're both very hateable right now. And I think the fact that people do dislike them, I don't think it's the Baron Corbin effect where you don't like them just because you don't like them. I think they're doing really good heel work right now.
Or in
But
your
Io
case, the
goes
Damien
over.
Priest effect.
Right. What underwhelmed me with this is the return that we got after the match. I'm happy to see that Ember Moon is back. However, I didn't care. I didn't care. I didn't think this was some huge return to NXT. I was not a massive fan of the Ember Moon run to begin with in NXT. I thought she was more of the figurehead out of necessity because they were a little thinner with the women's roster after Asuka moved up. And I don't mean to knock Ember. It didn't overwhelm me. What I will give them credit for, though, was I think they swerved us in that we all thought it was going to be a male returning, and it ended up being a female. But I didn't get so she put out this social media post about how for the last month she's been walking around in Florida with like sweats on, covering her face with the mask. And I mean, obviously for obvious reasons, but also as if she's like trying to hide her identity that she's back in Florida. And I thought that was weird because she was saying how hot it is to walk around like this every day. And I don't know. I mean, to me, it was like, oh, you did all that for nothing, in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah, when they were putting out those, you see, here's the weird part. When they were putting out those promos for "I have bled for the company for this" or whatever, and you know, it's funny because Ember never came to my mind once. I'd forgotten all about Ember. I literally didn't care. Like you said, I forgot all about her. When I think it was Andy, or was it you? Somebody was throwing out Bobby. Somebody was throwing out Bobby Roode, which would have been fine. But yeah, but when it became Ember, I was like, oh, okay, interesting choice to make there. I would have probably preferred somebody else, or maybe a debut in that spot would have been a little bit better served. Ember's more of the type who can come back on the weekly NXT show. She doesn't have to come back at the pay-per-view. She isn't on that level.
It just didn't do anything for me. And again, I'm not a person that's hating on her because of what we got results-wise on the main program. I was never really into the Ember Moon programs at NXT. I felt like her program with Shayna Baszler was a disaster. I didn't like that at all. I thought the matches were not very good. They had I think 3 matches. Am I right? And I thought maybe one of them was pretty good.
I think that was. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, if you go back on our program here and listen to the archived stuff, at that time, I think I put a lot of that on Shayna Baszler. But in hindsight now, and I'm not saying Shayna wasn't green then, but I think a lot of the blame for that not really working out, not being good quality, was also on Ember.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I was actually gonna say something to that. It's like, well, half of that is also because Shayna was new and was still learning it. But to be fair, if you've been in the ring more and you're the veteran, or you're somebody who's had more experience, you should at least be able to handle somebody who's not experienced in the ring and say, like, okay, can you do this with them? Can you get at least a good, decent match out of them? And we really didn't get that.
Yeah. So overall in all, underwhelmed. I mean, I'm happy she's back. I know she had a very serious injury, and I think in terms of that, I'm happy she's back. And just in terms of this being some grand debut that they were or return that they were promoting for weeks, like I saw Finn Balor do the same thing, and that really hit me. So I just felt like this really fell short of the mark. But we'll see. It's another female to add to a very strong, as Pete Evans said earlier, a very strong NXT women's division. But But again, if I look at Ember and I look at the women's division now, Maddie, I feel like she's maybe 6th or 7th on that chain, on the food chain.
I could see that. But on a positive note, there's been so much distance between that run she had on the main rosters because of her injury that it's a clean slate for her. So it's a chance for her to kind of rebuild herself here on NXT. So the opportunity's there.
And then moving on, obviously, to the main event, Kyle O'Reilly versus Finn Balor for the NXT Championship. I thought this was a spectacular match. It was everything I hoped it would be. I don't feel like, and I think it was mentioned a couple times in the comments here, that this takeover had the build-up that other takeovers have, and I don't know why, because they have plenty of time in between. However, in terms of getting to this point, and the sit-down that they did with Shawn Michaels last Wednesday, I thought was really great, going back to their days, and Kyle O'Reilly talking about how he was basically chasing the Finn match, and, when he got to one place, Finn moved on. He got here, ROH or whatever it was. Finn moved on. Finn went to Japan. He finally got to Japan, and Finn had moved on to WWE. Finally got over here, and when he got to NXT, Finn was moved up to the main roster. So kind of chasing that Finn match, that dream match for him. I really liked what they were able to do.
Well said, Pete.
Forgot about Toni Storm too. She's back. But yeah, I was a really big fan of this. Again, I agree with you. I think Kyle O'Reilly's been a world champion elsewhere as a single star on WWE television. He's a tag team specialist. But Kyle O'Reilly, as a singles competitor, go back to New Japan, go back to ROH, is phenomenal.
He held the world title in ROH.
He did. He was a phenomenal single star. And I felt like coming out of this, Finn was going to win, and I felt like Finn needed to win this match. I think Finn is going to have a strong run with the NXT title. However, I did feel like Kyle O'Reilly was going to leave this match a winner too, and I really felt like he did. Now, what I didn't like is I felt like they took the thunder away from him. He had this phenomenal match with Finn. They had the handshake, and then they went and they did the shit with Adam Cole at the end of the program, to where now Adam Cole is the head of the Undisputed Era. And I don't feel like you needed to take away from Kyle's moment to now position him to where now he just had this knockdown, drag out world title match with Finn Balor. He's on a high. He's in there. They're shaking hands. And now he's out there and he's one of Adam's guys again. I didn't like that at all. I had a very big issue with that. Took away from the moment for me. However, Kyle O'Reilly, great showing. Finn Balor, phenomenal match. That's not true. They always say you can't lose your first defense, but that's not true, Ted. Ask Kane.
You gotta love it when WWE books themselves into a corner. But anyway.
overall show, Maddie, I agree with you. Not the worst takeover I've seen. Far from the best that I've seen. But I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed watching most of it. And I have to say, this new presentation that they have, this new branding of the Performance Center, what's it called? The Capital Wrestling Center now, based off of an old territory name. I loved the look of this.
Not just any old territory, the one that Jess McMahon was running.
Right. I love the look of this. And I think that's a plus for them. It's very exciting. So, yeah, so I give the show. I'm gonna go 2.5. I'm gonna go middle of the road here. I would have given it a 3, maybe 3.5 if I didn't get the ending that we got. I just really dislike that. I don't like that they took away from Kyle O'Reilly's moment. And I love Adam Cole, but this was a chance for Kyle O'Reilly. You didn't need it. You could have did this Wednesday. You could have did something this Wednesday. You could have had a rematch between the two. that ends in some weird schmaz, or this dude comes out and ends up, maybe they're in the middle of this heated match and this guy shows up on the ramp. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I know he's an NXT UK guy. Shows up with Adam Cole over his shoulder at the top of the ramp, and that distracts O'Reilly to where he goes to save Cole and gets counted out or whatever it is. You could have did something to get away from that. I didn't like it on this main card.
Maybe this is just a theory, but maybe they're planting a seed. Maybe they're slowly starting to build towards where Cole will face O'Reilly and an eventual breakup of the Undisputed Era.
Well, I think the Undisputed Era breaking up is 100% in the works. We've kind of seen them starting to plant the seeds of that, and I'm fine with that. I think they're going to bring Cole up, and Cole's going to probably be a singles guy. I'd love to see them bring the faction up. Honestly, that's the faction I would like to see go after Retribution, but I don't think we're going to get that. So we'll see what happens here, Maddie. Anything? Oh, and I don't know if you heard about this. Just get a quick opinion before we do our sign off here. Rumors floating out there that Ronda Rousey has been working with Natalya for possibly a return. Any thoughts on that? Do you think that they miss Ronda? I do. I think they miss her big time.
I think it would be a huge storyline for them right now. For the other women's title, the SmackDown one has the Sasha and Bayley thing, but for the Raw women's title, that would be huge, and it'd be huge for Raw, in my opinion, if they could get Ronda.
I mean, we would be past Sasha and Bayley. For my intuition would say it would be around Rumble time, maybe as a surprise entrant in the Rumble, or WrestleMania season at some point, maybe a little after Rumble. So I wouldn't be concerned with what the programs are and who the champions are now, because I think that I could see her versus Asuka, which I would take my money.
I'd be fine with that. 110% would be fine with that.
Yeah.
I would. That'd be great because you can have that. Maybe you even do a Ronda versus Shayna one day.
I think that would be something that we would see. Even if Ronda comes back for a one-off, I think she would want that match against Shayna. Anyway, quick programming note again to you guys who stuck with us. We appreciate you as always. Next Tuesday, 1 week from today, special show coming at you, special lazy booking coming at you. It is our celebration of Animal, Road Warrior Animal, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. As you guys know, we were talking to him, and he was actually going to be coming on the show. Talked to him a couple of days before he passed, and unfortunately, very tragically, he passed away suddenly. So what we've done is we've actually spoken to a couple of our previous guests who know him very, very well. They're going to join us. There may or may not be others that hop on, but I can tell you again, as I mentioned last week, confirmed to be on with us next week for our Animal, our celebration of Animal and the Road Warriors will be Nikita Koloff and Bushwhacker Luke returning to Lazy Booking to talk about Joe Laurinaitis, to talk about his life, knowing Joe in and out of the ring, as well as the legacy of him and the Road Warriors of professional wrestling. So I know myself, Maddie, Ryan, I think, is back there, or whoever. I know we're really looking forward to that show. So please make sure you guys join us next week. We're going to have a 7:30 start time, Eastern Standard Time. Again, celebration of Road Warrior Animal featuring Nikita Koloff and Bushwhacker Luke to talk about Joe. So really looking forward to that show. Other than that, though, guys, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy, Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey. Find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Ambuck Services. Let Michael Ambrose know that we sent you guys, and you're getting 20% off. Fall's here. Your gutters are going to get clogged. Get it taken care of. It's ambuckservices.com, as well as Philly Drinkers. You can find them, phillydrinkers.com. You want to find the A2D collection at Philly Drinkers, it's phillydrinkers.com/A2D radio. And again, you're going to get cool stuff like hats, get some A2D shirts, show shirts, Philadelphia-inspired A2D shirts. Philadelphia Quarterback Factory shirt is still there. Promo code A2D is going to get you 25% off on that specific shirt. And, hey, get out there, get your Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia shirt. Thank you to President Trump for that stupid voice clip. But that stupid hot take during the campaign or the debates. Anyway, yeah, get on there. You can get that. There's many different designs in that too. Some different looks. So get on there and check those shirts out. Thank you guys for joining us. Tomorrow night, you're going to have The Fix in the PM. Obviously, Thursday night, you'll have Birds of a Feather, as well as the Hockey Happy Hour. So you'll get your dose of myself and Maddie just on separate shows. On Thursday night, as well as Friday, you're going to get On the Road to Victory with Jimmy. Saturday, whole gamut of shows, kicking it stateside, the weekly roundup, and our other counterparts, our wrestling counterparts in this very ring with Ritz and Butters, the Butters Show. Sunday, the flagship Agree to Disagree. They'll be wrapping up doing post-game Eagles talk, and boy, tough matchup this week. We'll see if we can ride that high and get a little momentum going into this week against Pittsburgh. You'll be able to talk, air your grievances, or your pleasantries, depending on how that game goes, with the guys over there. And Monday nights, the Sports Hounds. And again, we'll be back next week with our special guests. So for myself, for Maddie, for I think it's Ryan back there on the ones and twos.
Maybe.
Ryan or Frank, either one of you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for your help. For myself, for Maddie, guys, be safe. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. Put your masks on. We'll catch you guys soon.